NS 홈쇼핑 앱을 열면 신선하게, 쉽게, 빠르게 앱 할수록 건강해집니다. NS 모바일.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about our work in enhancing locations with 5G and augmented reality. Enhanced locations is a term that we've been working on to really define what the future of augmented reality will look like, where soon phones and eyewear will manage a digital layer of information that will be contextually relevant to us, but will be sitting on top of the world and will appear as and when we might need it. For the last few years we've been designing how that might unfold and trying to improve and explore the technologies that will make that possible. And today I want to talk through a few projects that we've been working on and talk about the general concept of enhancing locations. To kick off, I just want to kind of lay out where AR is, especially in 2020, because a lot of what we'll be talking about today is technically possible now, but is really also future gazing when things become a bit more ubiquitous. So where are we in 2020? I'd argue that from a consumer point of view, the largest adoption of AR is still in social apps like Snapchat, Facebook, and TikTok. Really, that's where the audiences still are. It's a way for brands to access them, and they're short and bite-sized, but they still kind of dominate the AR space, and there hasn't really been many competitor platforms, really. And within those, a lot of the experience is still really face filters. You've probably all done them and played with them, and it's been pretty dominant in that space, but you can see that it's beginning to change. I think companies like Snap have done some great ways of beginning to integrate machine learning and pose tracking technologies to really kind of change what's possible within a very small file size within an existing social platform. So it's still dominated by relatively kind of simple tricks, but it is beginning to change. Obviously 2020 is the year of COVID, and I think it's kind of put a dampener on some of the brand and consumer activations that you would have seen, particularly as we're talking about locations, but it hasn't slowed it. It's still one of the most interesting trending technologies, and I think 2021 is going to be a big year for that. So when I think about the future of AR, really I think about our North Star, and I think really most people agree that it's realism. We want these experiences to feel like they are actually there. Too often AR can feel like a little bit of a magic trick, and if you kind of put your hand in front of the lens, it kind of loses its sort of strength and form factor. And I think in everything that we design, whether it's a utility for navigation or it's a big takeover American football kind of activation, we are trying to make it look as real as possible. It should feel like the additional layer on top of the world that already exists. And there's a few things that make that possible, and I want to kind of briefly talk through each one here and talk about why it's important. So it's fair to say that Apple's AR kit came out in 2017, and really that was the beginning for lots of kind of innovation in different areas that make lots of differences to how we might achieve realism. So one of the first things that is growing and is becoming more and more relevant is the semantics of a location. So this is the computer camera actually knowing what it's looking at. That could be as simple as like, oh, it's a kitchen or it's my living room, and it just knows it from the objects that it can see. but also right down to kind of the minutiae, like, oh, that's a sofa, so my AR content, let's say it's a character, can now go and sit on the sofa. So we kind of need the cameras to begin sort of tagging objects in the world. And then with that, it's a bit of a superpower. We can then have the AR do things which you wouldn't think were possible because you didn't realize that the computer knew what this object was. So semantics is a growth area, and there's some really lovely things that you can do with it once we have it. Occlusion. Occlusion is again something that wasn't out of the box, but now it is. So there's different ways in which companies like Google and Apple are doing this, but occlusion is fundamental to actually making an object feel like it's there. And it's really exciting that this is now a sort of out of the box piece of technology that you can plug in. It means that your objects will look like they're actually in the position that they're in, having that layer of depth inside the room. Next is kind of post-tracking and segmentation. This is really just recognizing, let's say, the human body. So if your friend walks in front of you while there's an AR scene, the AR object will occlude behind the person because we were able to track that that was a human body and we could see it in real time. There's lots of other things that make this possible. You know, you can begin designing experiences that use human gesture and obviously different parts of the body to track. So post-tracking segmentation is super important as we look at realism, because again, it's often humans that get in the way of AR and ruin the magic. So this is a big one. Next up is persistence. This is the idea that AR content will stay where you left it, and I think we're just in the beginnings of now seeing an uptake next year, at least, where consumers will get used to this idea that they can place an object out on the street somewhere in their house, and then tomorrow when they open up the app again, it's still there. There's lots of exciting opportunities in the space, utilities and gaming, and you know, we will talk about you know, how's this going to work? How does one edit a persistent space? If you place content in my space, can I then remove it because it's mine? If it's in a public space, can I remove it or add to it? So persistence is really great, and it's a super interesting area. And again, we need this in order to feel like this level of AR is real. And then the last is multi-user. I'm not sure we've really seen any examples to date of a kind of AR app that is doing this at scale, but it's certainly a piece of technology which is improving again and again. So this is the idea that let's say 100 people could all see the same thing, the same virtual asset, change and adapt at the same time. Again, if you think of this in like a stadium context, you kind of want everyone to be in sync to whatever you're watching, and the same is true in the AR context. So this is syncing up basically everyone's shared state so they see everything at the same time. So as you kind of, you know, as I've walked through each of those, again, this is kind of leading to this idea of creating the most realistic layer on top of our current reality that we can perform experiences. I want to kind of kick off some of our work. I want to begin with Hot Stepper. This was an application that we developed just after ARKit came out. We were super excited to begin to kind of explore how AR content might come with you. We felt that at the time, a lot of the AR demos were really a 3D object on a table, and that object didn't know anything about the table. It just was it understood it was an area that it could track, but it didn't have any kind of social context to it. So we were trying to think of products that we could build that would allow AR to sort of be in your world and come with you from different places. So the general idea around Hot Stepper was that he's a AR guide that can take you anywhere in the world. So I'm going to show a little video, and then I want to talk about some of our learnings during this project. So some of the problems that we had with Hot Stepper was to do with the accuracy of the technology that we were using for his position. We were using GPS, which is accurate to around 10 to 12 feet. What we realized was that with that kind of accuracy, him turning a corner meant that he might take the corner too late. Sometimes he might walk into the road and then turn the corner. And this was a real problem for us, developing a product where you're meant to follow a character. And in the end, we had to kind of create some tricks about sort of when the data didn't look good, we would kind of tailor him closer to the phone itself. But it opened up a really exciting journey for us where we tried to explore whether there were any solutions to positional accuracy with AR. And back in 2017, you know, there were talks about using computer vision for position, and there were some examples, but nothing consumer grade and nothing really available to the public. So we started working with a number of different startups in the space, and to try and really get to grips with how we might be able to use new technologies to have hyper accurate renders of AR in the world. This technology is often referred to as a visual positioning system, and you know, very briefly, it's kind of like a game of match. You send up a few images from your phone, they compare it to images they have on a server, and if they find a match, they kind of send you back longitude, latitude, and altitude, and that position can be as accurate as a few centimeters. So this is really game-changing for augmented reality, and that kind of sent us off on a big journey of R&D and research. And I want to talk about the first public project that came off the back of a couple of years of work in that space. So this is the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. We were fortunate to work with Samsung, building a number of different demos using visual positioning technology and augmented reality, and we were able to partner with the Dallas Cowboys and AT&T to kind of realize a proof of concept in late 2019 that really would show people the potential for what hyper-accurate augmented reality might mean on top of some of the most entertaining places that we frequent, and especially areas where 5G is going to be one of the first places people can really enjoy super fast speeds. So I'm going to show you a little bit of demo of that and talk about it a bit more. When I saw that clip on location for the first time, it was pretty game-changing. Now, let me talk a little bit about how that works. The first thing you need to do is you need to build this map of the place that you want to augment. So we use photogrammetry techniques, and we also use drones to build this fully 3D representation, a kind of one-to-one digital copy of the stadium inside and outside. And then that imagery is processed inside a visual positioning engine, and then what that allows is for the user to take out their phone, point it in a direction, and if there's AR content, then that AR content will load because position would have already loaded. So there's a little video here to sort of show how that works. So this is finding location, which takes about 2 seconds. So as you can see, once it finds it, then it can load that content, and hopefully you'll notice that the player's hands reach out and they pull themselves up from the architecture of the building. So that's a real obvious example of where you can physically attach the augmented virtual asset to the real world, and you can only do that if you have this sort of hyper accurate layer. Show another video. So that is a game we built called Time Tackle. We wanted to explore how users throughout the stadium, you know, from any seat, whether you're literally in the nosebleeds in the top or on the court, you could play a social game on the field. These characters are about 80 foot tall. We have you know, volumetric streaming characters and CG characters, and it's a very simple tap game we built just to explore this concept of how people might kind of play together at halftime or pre-show. And we also integrated a kind of competitive leaderboard as well, so that people could try and beat each other's scores throughout the day. It's a really exciting example of how games might be integrated inside a stadium example. This is another This is another example we were really keen to make, which is rendering live data from the game on top of the field. So we pull in the stats from Sports Radar, and then we visualize them on top of the field. This has become a really exciting area for us. If you think about it, you've had this in TV broadcast for a while. We can now bring this to the in-stadium experience, but also the at-home experience too. It's this idea that now that we know where we are inside that stadium, I can render content that's specific to areas on the field. So if some action happened on the 10-yard line, we can visually show where that is because we know where you are, so we can render it from that direction. So this was a really exciting proof of concept, and it's actually turned into a lot more work for us as we begin to kind of develop where that can go in sports. So next I want to pivot completely to a completely different type of project, still utilizing the same kinds of technologies and looking at how museums and palaces can be enhanced with 5G and this hyper-accurate AR that we've been working on. So this is the Chandiok Palace. This was a partnership with Google and SK Telecom. And the idea here was to really design the sort of future tour experience so that visitors could be navigated around this giant palace and then see things that they've never seen before, but also learn in different ways. So I'm going to show you a little bit of this project. This recently came out a few months ago. The way that we approached this was, if you remember our Hot Stepper guide, we wanted to explore another character system here for navigation. So there's a kind of mystical creature called Ritchie that walks you all around the palace. And along the way you'll meet lots of different kinds of characters. Some of them are volumetric, some are CG. And it's a really exciting way of providing context to the location itself, but also allowing you to kind of customize and personalize your experience of the palace itself. This is an example of our tour guide and learning a little bit about the history of the palace. And also, please note when he turns, because this is what's really important, is that he knows exactly where you are and he knows where you want to go, and we now have this hyper-accurate level of positional understanding. So this is sort of certainly the future of where navigation is going.
Pak Cha-chong, a great Joseon architect, designed it. The king actually locked poor old Pak in jail for designing the courtyard to his own liking. Thankfully, he came to see Pak's vision of harmonizing the architecture with the nature around it, and soon let him go.
In this next video, I want to show you what happens once you arrive at your destination. And again, this is really important to the 5G bandwidth, streaming holograms, and positional accuracy. So this is combining a lot of those elements that I was talking about in the beginning, where you know, a digital guide can walk you right up to the door, and then as you see, we'll look inside, there will be volumetric characters of kings and queens that are streamed volumetrically. So that's, you know, full holograms that are streamed over a 5G server. So this isn't something that the user has to download beforehand. This streams live. It's exciting to be able to show this demo actually.
Look through the doorway. Behold, the king and queen are arriving. Welcome King Yongzhou, 21st ruler of the Joseon dynasty, and his beautiful queen, Yongzhong. King Yongzhou lived to the age of 83 and was Joseon's longest reigning monarch, ruling for an incredible 52 years.
And then this last demo is a dance sequence, again, that's also streamed volumetrically. I just want to call out some really lovely work that we did with how we might show holograms and how we might kind of fade them away using different kinds of particle systems. It's a really lovely example.
The performance will begin at any moment. This is the Dance of the Nightingale. It was created by Prince Hyungyong at the age of 19 to celebrate his mother's 40th birthday. It's usually performed in Yongkyeong-dan, the garden, but just for today, you can watch it here in Busan.
So I just wanted to end with you know, what's next, where this technology might be going. I can say for ourselves that we have more of these experiences on the way, but the technologies are becoming much more ubiquitous. So Apple certainly has begun to take a lead on this, and Google behind them as well, where this technology of being able to have hyper accurate persistence content in space is just easier to do, and therefore becoming more widely adopted. You know, you'll see that Apple are beginning to release some key cities that you can use this technology in this year, and obviously more locations will kind of become available across 2021. So this is the idea, you know, as we look forward, that more and more kind of key areas in the world will be available for you to build experiences on top of, and to have persistent AR content in place, just like we did at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium and at the Chandiok Palace. There is a real opportunity, I believe, for new platforms that are accelerated by 5G. Just like our work in the stadiums, we know where 5G is going early, where it's being adopted, where the opportunities are, and I think there's lots of opportunities for different kinds of new companies to come in and really design new services and new experiences that really benefit from hyper accurate technology that can truly enhance a location. The sort of most exciting one, but also still early days, but really the introduction of a kind of eyewear prototype, something that has a level of consumer focus. And obviously, perhaps at the end of next year, we might begin to see sort of V1 of these types of products. But we're all working towards this idea of a always-on product that stays on. It's glasses that stays with you all day, and really just contextually drives you what you might need when and where you are. All these experiences I'm talking about and the experiences we're looking to design in the future, they really benefit from this idea that it's a product that just comes on as and when you might need it, as opposed to having to download an app or having to take your phone out of your pocket. So that is coming, and it's an exciting area that we're working in as well. And with that, we've finished. Lastly, thanks again for having me. Excited I can walk you through some of this work around enhancing locations. Have a great day. Thank you.